Recording in progress.
Okay, good evening, everybody. We are being audio and video recorded. It's Tuesday, May 16th, the regularly scheduled meeting of the Land Use Committee of the City of Newton. Present at the beginning of the meeting, I'm the chair, Rick Lipoff. We also have the vice chair, Andrea Kelly, and other members of the committee, Tariq Lucas, Andrea Downs. Anybody else? And Counselor Maria Greenberg is here. From the Law Department, we have Jonah Temple. And from Planning, we have Katie Wewell, Kat Kemet, Michael Gleba, Elisa Sandoval. I think I have everybody. Okay? The first item of the night is 143-23, request to amend special permit 27608 to change from a non-conforming personal training facility to a medical office at 564 Commonwealth Ave. Ms. Kemet, can we have the Planning Department's report, please?
Yes, let me, and I have the ability to share my screen, please. Right, hopefully everyone can see that. This is petition number 143-23, which is amending special permit 27608. The petitioners here are seeking to use the location of a current physical fitness studio to operate a physical therapy practice. In order to do that, they need relief to change from one non-conforming use to another because it is in a residential district, and the previous special permit was specific to that particular non-conforming use. In reviewing this request, the council should consider whether the site in a multi-residence zoning district is an appropriate location for the proposed use, whether the proposed use will adversely affect the neighborhood, whether the use will create a nuisance or serious hazard to vehicles or pedestrians, whether access to site over streets is appropriate, and whether the proposed conversion to a physical therapy office would be substantially more detrimental than the existing non-conforming fitness studio use. The property is located on the south side of Com Ave at the corner of Chestnut Terrace, roughly half a mile from Newton Center. The building has frontage on Com Ave and Chestnut Terrace, and the site is relatively flat. The property has approximately 13,000 square feet and is improved with a single-story commercial building with approximately 6,000 square feet that's built up to the property line. There are several tenants in the building ranging from 700 to about 1,400 square feet. Those tenants currently include a pet grooming and supply store, a dental office, among several others. And the space that the petitioner is renting is at the far east of the space, and it's roughly 750 square feet. The petitioner proposes to establish an outpatient physical therapy office. named PAGI Physical Therapy and Sports Rehabilitation. Based on the narrative provided, the clients will be by appointment only with a maximum of 6 individuals in the site at a time. That's 2 staff members and up to 4 clients. The facility would operate during typical working hours, and there are no plans for any large deliveries to the site that need to be accommodated. The building has 5 parking stalls located behind the building on a private way accessed from Chestnut Terrace. The previous use was classified as a personal service use for the purposes of determining the parking, and the resulting amount of parking required is 4 stalls. The credit from the previous use fully covers that, so there's no waiver needed for parking. Overall, the department believes that this location is appropriate. The site is in a building with a history of commercial and retail use, despite being in a residential zone, and the traffic associated with the use should not be any more impactful than what is currently in place on the site. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Kemet. Is there anybody from the petitioner that wishes to add to that at all? You're welcome to.
Adam Pagi Physical Therapy. That was the gist of what we're looking to do. We've been in practice since 2015 in Brookline. We work with a number of the Newton residents already. Newton feels like home, and we're excited about the potential opportunity to become a little bit more involved in the community.
Great. Okay, thank you very much. It was an In Shape for Women, and this will be the new use, correct?
Yes, sir.
Yes. All right. Okay, anybody from the public wish to comment on this petition? Come on up to the microphone and make sure it's turned on at the base there.
Okay, thank you. My name is Gordon Megrian, and I live at 563 Commonwealth Avenue, which is right across the street from the petitioner. I have no objection to change of use at 562 Commonwealth Avenue, as long as all board orders and special permits are followed. The applicant states that they would like to change the signage outside and that they were aware of the board orders and special permits, which there are many. With that stated, in their application, I want to emphasize that illuminated signs are not permitted and that they should be uniform with other signs on the building. That's about it. I wish them the best of luck and hope to see them in the neighborhood.
Thank you very much. Okay. So, Mr. Pagi, you are aware of the rules. I assume you'll be changing your sign, but understand what the special permit says.
Yes, we've been in touch with a sign company that's familiar with the area. We've been given the sign application with instructions on what to provide. We intend on hopefully soon providing what our markup would be for approval from Newton, and our goal is to be conforming with everything that's already present there. So simple, just letting people know that we exist.
Okay, and no lighting?
No lighting.
No
Nope.
lighting, great, okay. Thank you very much. All right, anybody else from the public? At home, you can raise your virtual hand. I don't see anybody. We'll take it into the council. Anybody have any questions or comments? Councilor Bowman, welcome.
Thank you. Sorry for being a little late. So this is my ward, and it is actually literally around the corner from my house. And I'm excited to see another great use coming into this. And I think it's very appropriate. And I only wish that this process could go faster for this.
Great, thank you.
So are you here?
You done, Councilor Bowman? Yeah. State your name and address, please.
Yes, I'm Gil Mason. I live at 47 Elmore Street, not too far from the site. That would be great to have another physical therapy office nearby. I was just curious whether they're also planning to enroll in the Medicare program to treat the elderly and disabled. That's it. Thank you.
Okay, that's really not relevant to what we're doing here. Mr. Paggi, do you want to talk about that?
Yes. Well, definitely. The Medicare subscribers are a major demographic of our current patients. We're already a Medicare provider, and we intend on continuing that to a large degree in this new site. Look forward to seeing you.
Thank you very much. Me and my colleagues, I'll call them. It's good to have you. Nice to have you opening a PT office near me. Sounds great.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Councilor Bowman?
I'm happy to close the public hearing and move approval.
Councilor Bowman has closed the public hearing. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, abstentions, the public hearing is closed. We have a motion to approve by Councilor Bowman. Ms. Kemet, can we take a look at a council order?
So for proposed findings, we have that one, the site in MR1 is an appropriate location for the proposed use because the building already has non-conforming commercial uses and it's in close proximity to Newton Center. 2, the proposed office as developed and operated will not adversely affect the neighborhood because the project complies with the parking requirement and street parking is available. 3, the use will not create a nuisance or serious hazard to vehicles or pedestrians because the use does not require any alterations to the site. 4, access to the site over streets is appropriate for the type and number of vehicles involved. And 5, the proposed change from one non-conforming use to another is not more detrimental than the previous use is to the neighborhood because they are both considered personal service uses and operate similarly. And for the proposed conditions, we have plan referencing standard conditions for building permit and occupancy. And I also carried forward a condition from the previous special permit that is a little bit different. The proposed tenant shall keep the rear door to the facility shut in order to prevent any noise from disturbing abutters.
Okay, thank you very much. We have a motion to approve. Can we please call the roll?
Councillor Bowman,
Aye.
Councillor Downs,
Aye.
Councillor Greenberg,
Aye.
Councillor Kelly,
Aye.
Councillor Laredo, Councillor Lipoff,
Aye.
Councillor Lucas,
Aye.
Councillor Markowitz.
Okay, thank you very much. That passes. Good luck with your project, Mr. Paggi.
Thank you all. Appreciate it.
All right, take care. Our next item is 14223 46 Valley Spring Road, petition for a special permit to further extend non-conforming FAR. Mr. Galiba, can you please give planning's report?
Yes, I can.
And the petitioners are Akinobu and Naoko Ito.
Okay. All right, so what's being sought is a special permit site plan approval to raise, demolish an existing detached garage and construct an attached 2-car garage with living spaces above, which would increase the non-conforming FAR. So as shown here, the zoning relief, again, to extend that further non-conforming FAR, that would be from 0.49 to 0.57, where 0.38 is the maximum allowed by right. It would increase the square footage by 817 feet, not the 1336 square feet that was in the memo, but everything else is the same. The total square footage and the FAR. Another issue that was mentioned in the zoning review memo was that a variance was needed. So because the resulting structure would be 36.4 feet, where 36 feet is the maximum allowed. That has to do not with the structure being higher than what the code one is now. The ridge line would stay the same. It's the change of the grade when the garage is attached, and it's located in the lower portion of the site. So in effect, the average grade is lowered and the height goes up. But again, there's no change to the existing ridge line. So it's no higher, quote unquote, than the existing one is now. So the criteria to consider is as shown, whether that expanded structure with the increased non-conforming FAR of 0.57 is consistent with and not in derogation of the size, scale, and design of other structures in the neighborhood. And then there's the extension of the non-conforming FAR criteria as shown, whether that increase to 0.54 where 0.38 exists and 0.36 is the maximum allowed by right would be substantially more detrimental than the existing non-conforming structure is to the neighborhood. For background, here we see the site in blue on the south side of Valley Spring Road with the public golf course to the south, and it's at its intersection with Door Road, which goes to the north. Here's the site plan. It's both existing and proposed. So we see the existing house pretty much in the center of the lot. The additions to the house include the proposed porch and deck at the rear, kind of circled to some degree in blue here. And the other addition, also in blue, is the proposed single car garage with living space above. To show some detail, what you see here is the addition, which is outlined in a darker line, would be attached to the left side of the house. It would replace the garage that exists now. That is, in effect, its location is behind the proposed location of the addition. So the addition is mostly being built on the existing driveway, which is shown cross-hatching here, and the existing garage space to the rear would be converted into lawn area. One other issue to note is here. This shows the proposed driveway as being 20 feet wide. As drawn by the surveyor, the curb cut would be 21 feet wide, as shown here, but planning has discussed this with the petitioner, and that curb cut would, in fact, not be 21 feet, and it would be no larger than 20 feet in width. Here are the elevations, left, front, and rear, going clockwise from the upper left. The one on the upper right, you can see the addition, kind of outlined in red. So you see the two-car garage, living space above, and the level of that garage is a little bit lower than the first floor, again, because the property slopes downward in that direction. With the rear elevation, again, the addition with garage is to the right-hand side, and the decks and porches off the main part of the home are shown as well. Two quick photos. This obviously is from Valley Stream. You can see the existing garage, which would be demolished, and the new garage, as we saw, would be in effect right in front of that site, connected on the left side of the existing home, and the golf course is to the rear of this. Therefore, a slightly different angle, again, looking more from the left. You see that left facade of the existing home. That's where the proposed garage would go, and the existing detached one, obviously, would be torn down. That's all we have for now, and hopefully can answer any questions that the petitioner may have.
Excellent. I am seeing Mr. Walter rise to his feet. You get to know the regulars. Mr. Walter, good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Chair. Yes, I represent the owners. My name is Jay Walter of Entasis Architects. If I might share my screen.
Address?
83 Pembroke Street, Newton Corner.
Thank you. Mr. Gleba, can we allow him to share the screen? Yep. Okay, go ahead.
Okay. I'd just like to show some photographs that kind of express the real change in slope on this site, which is what has generated the project. As you can see here, the garage is quite a bit lower than the front of the house and the street. In fact, this is a walkout basement, and there's a step there behind the patio. And so actually the garage level is lower than the basement level, which is a full story below the entry. So there's 11 feet from front to back change in slope on this site. And that's what's generated this change. So what we've done, is we've moved the existing garage up the hill and attached it to the house with a little connector with the stairs and the entry. And by moving it up, we've reduced the slope of the driveway considerably. And as you can see, we needed a variance for the garage, although the garage is not near the existing ridge line of the existing house, because of the way the height is calculated through the mean grade level. We had to include this lower grade around the building, which is why the calculation showed that we were actually increasing the height of the building, which clearly we're not. In fact, I think that the addition scales the building a bit better. And finally, this site plan on the architectural set is a little clearer than the survey. It shows the existing garage in the back corner of the lot will be moved up and attached to the house, reducing the slope of the existing driveway. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody from the public that wishes to comment on this petition? Anybody on Zoom? You can raise your virtual hand and I'll call on you. I don't see anybody. We'll take it to the council. Is there anybody who wishes to make comment? Councilor Lucas.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Quick question, Mr. Walter. I guess you or the applicant, the homeowner, got a variance a little over a year ago from the ZBA, and I was just wondering what took so long to come to the Land Use Committee.
No, you're mistaken. We just got a variance 2 weeks ago.
Oh, they have the wrong year. They said 2022.
Oh,
So,
really? Yeah. No, we got the variance as part of this whole
Okay.
application.
Never mind the question.
Okay, anybody else? Councilor Bowman.
So yes, it was mentioned about the very wide driveway opening. I'd love to see it drop back, not just to 20 feet, but to something much more scaled in the neighborhood. I think we much more frequently see, even if it's a double wide driveway, a driveway entrance that's closer to 14 feet or something around there. So have you thought much, do you have a plan for the driveway?
Well, we would like to, because it's still sloped, so it's tough to maneuver. And so rather than make the applicant maneuver and turn while they're going up and down the hill, that's why we made it wide. 16 feet would give us ample room to go straight for 2 cars, if that would be acceptable.
All right, that would be better. I mean, we do have another project before us in a couple of further down the agenda that has a similar issue. So I think 16 feet would be, from my aspect, certainly much more acceptable. Thank you.
Counselor Laredo?
Sorry, I got delayed. I got tied up with some work matters. I have no problem with this project. It's in my ward. I also see no problem whatsoever with the driveway width. This is Valley Spring Road is a dead end. I mean, there's no worries about, lots of pedestrians walking by. That's the type of stuff we tend to be worried about with curb cuts. I think we ought to let them design this properly the way they want and let it go the way it is. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else from the committee? Counselor Downs?
Wasn't going to comment on the driveway since Councilor Bowman had, but I agree. It's part of our climate goals is also to just not blacktop everything. So a narrower driveway that still is maneuverable, I think would be preferable. Thank you.
Thank you. Counselor Kelly?
Thank you. Yeah, I think it's a nice way of solving a problem created by the grade. So I see why you went for the variance first. And personally, I think a 20-foot curb cut and a 16-foot wide driveway would work just fine here and help with our pervious paving and climate goals. And I like to thank Mr. Walter for doing a nice job on integrating this new addition with the existing one. I'll be happy to vote in favor of it. Thanks.
Are you saying that you would like to see a more narrow driveway as well at 16 feet?
Yeah, I think the 20-foot curb cut and the 16 feet wide, which Mr. Walter said would accommodate the cars in the entry to the driveway, is fine.
I think they're talking about a 16-foot wide entrance curb cut.
Oh, I'm sorry. I misunderstood that.
I did, yeah.
Yeah. Backing up, I personally think a 20-foot wide curb cut moving to a narrower driveway would be fine too. So it's a nitpicky thing. I'll leave it to the committee to decide.
I tend to like to follow what rules we have on the books, which you can follow, and you can do whatever you want. If you want a 20-foot wide, you can do that. If you would like to do a 16 because of the discussion you just heard, let me know. You just let me know what you want to do, because, for us to push for something that isn't law yet, I feel a little uncomfortable about. I understand what my colleagues are trying to do, but, there's rights and ownership of real estate, and part of that bundle of rights is the current zoning, and this current zoning says you can do 20. So what say you?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Let's compromise at 18.
Will you be okay with that?
We would be okay with 18.
Yeah, if that's what you want to put forth. It's your project, and you're following our rules. So
sorry, I just want to follow up. The reason I thought that the architect was agreeing to the 16, in which case I was saying if it works for them, it's fine with me. But if a compromise of 18 feet wide is being submitted now, I would be happy to vote in favor of that too.
Okay, well, I guess it's 18. All right, thank you, Mr. Walter.
Thank you.
All right, okay. Councilor Laredo, your hand is still up.
Mr. Chair, I'm ready to move this, but I just, and if the petitioner, Mr. Walter, wants to reduce it by 2 feet, that's his prerogative. I have to just strongly object to this idea that we are continuing in this committee to micromanage things like the 2 or 4 feet widths of driveways in the name of fighting climate change globally. I think if our residents knew that's the kind of stuff we are spending our time on, they would not be happy. I'll leave it at that. I'm happy to move it. Thank you.
Thank you. I will say, Councilor Laredo, it doesn't take a lot of time. However, I do agree with you, which is why I just made that statement. Until we change the maximum width of the driveway, I feel uncomfortable always asking people to shrink it myself. And that's that. So we have an 18-foot driveway. Okay. The petitioners are smiling, so that's a good thing. All right. I think that is it. I see no other hands. I need a motion to close the public hearing by Councilor Lucas. So moved. All in favor of closing the public hearing, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, the public hearing is closed. We have a motion to approve by Councilor Lucas. Let's take a look at a council order, Mr. Gleba.
All right. So the proposed findings are as shown. The first one is the section 319 criteria to allow an increased FAR. The suggested finding is that it's not an derogation of the size, scale, or design of other structures in the neighborhood, given that the neighborhood features similarly scaled dwellings, many of which have living space located above attached garages. Then the extension of the non-conforming FAR criteria shown, it would not be substantially more detrimental than the existing non-conforming structure is to the neighborhood, given that the proposed additions would have limited or no visibility from nearby dwellings and public rights of way. As for the conditions, the standard plan referencing, pest control, building permit, and CO conditions.
Okay, thank you very much.
So for the plan reference, we could add the language
For the 18-foot
with the 20
curb
foot
cut.
and 18.
Okay, thank you. All right, we have a motion to approve. Can the clerk please call the roll?
Counselor Bowman,
Aye.
Counselor Downs,
Aye.
Counselor Greenberg,
Aye.
Counselor Kelly,
Aye.
Counselor Laredo,
Aye.
Counselor Lipoff,
Aye.
Counselor Lucas,
Aye.
Counselor Markowitz. 7-0 approved.
Thank you very much. Good luck with your project. Take care. All right, the next one is 560-22, Michael Quinn, request to allow a rear lot subdivision at 19 Staniford Street. We have Ms. Kemet to give the report first.
Mr. Chair, I'm recused on 19 Staniford Street, please.
Thank you. Councilor Laredo is recused. All right, Ms. Kemet.
Yes, so this is petition number 560-22 at 19 Staniford Street. The petitioners here are proposing to subdivide the lot to create two lots and construct a single-family dwelling on each of the two resulting lots. The committee first heard this petition in January of this year. At that time, committee members recommended the petitioner seek approval from the Conservation Committee first for the project, and the Planning Department requested clarification on a few points that have been addressed in the revised site plan submitted by the applicant. The relief required for this project is a request to allow a rear lot subdivision, request to exceed maximum build factor, and request to reduce the front setback. The petitioner submitted a revised site plan since the previous meeting that clarifies a few elements of the project. However, no substantial changes have been made to the project since then. It's largely the same. The revised site plan shows the location of exterior mechanicals, including AC units, but these don't affect the setbacks proposed for either of the dwellings. At the previous meeting, there were concerns raised relating to the stormwater plan. Planning staff have conferred with the associate city engineer to better understand how serious those concerns were. And his opinion is that these are largely housekeeping items that can be addressed at the building permit stage. So it's nothing that would impede them moving forward with this application. Members of the committee also requested the petitioner seek approval from the Conservation Committee before returning to land use due to the presence of wetlands on the site. The applicant has not yet completed that process and has not received that approval yet. So they will need to complete that review process before the project can receive a building permit, should the special permit be approved. The plan is essentially the same as what was presented in January, but as a refresher, this is the existing site plan. The site consists of 25,366 square feet of unimproved land. There was previously a single-family dwelling on the site that has since been razed, so it is currently vacant. The site has vehicle access on a curb cut on Stanford Street, leading to a paved driveway at the site of the former dwelling, and a portion of the property is subject to wetland restrictions. This is the proposed site plan. The front lot would consist of 11,500 square feet, where 10,000 square feet is required. And the rear lot will have 13,832 square feet, where 12,000 square feet is required. Both lots and their respective dwellings comply with FAR requirements. The FAR for the front lot is 0.31, where a maximum of 0.41 is allowed. The rear lot has 0.24, where up to 2.24 is allowed. The updated plans provided give a bit of a better sense of how the development would look in relation to surrounding structures. The ridge height of the rear dwelling will be about 8 feet taller than the nearest structure, and the closest structure to the rear lot dwelling will be the detached garage behind the dwelling at 11 Stanford. And the ridge height of the dwelling on the front lot will be in between the heights of the buildings at either side. So it is 3 feet shorter than the dwelling at 27 Stanford, and it's 7.7 feet higher than the dwelling at 11 Stanford Street. These are the elevations for the dwelling on the front lot, the one closer to Stanford Street. A maximum of 36 feet and up to 2.5 stories is allowed by right in SR3. Both lots comply with this requirement. The proposed dwelling on the front lot also meets all required setbacks for the district. And the dwelling on the rear lot is 25.8 feet from the rear lot line of the front lot, where 30 feet is required. So a special permit is required for that front setback. For the rear lot, this building has a slightly smaller FAR than the building on the front lot. It's also subordinate in height. Each of the two lots will have their own curb cuts and will have their own paved driveway leading to an attached 2-car garage. The front lot will have a 20-foot wide curb cut and the rear will have a 12-foot wide curb cut. The proposed driveway for the front lot adds about 1,070 square feet of new paving, and the driveway for the rear lot would add approximately 2,800 square feet of new paving on the site. This is the proposed landscape plan showing trees and other plantings that would run along the proposed new lot lines. The project does require relief for both of the lots to exceed the maximum build factor, which sets a threshold to limit irregularity in the shape of new lots. The proposed configuration here means that the lot is divided where the front lot maintains more of an irregular shape as it runs the entire length of the two lots along the western lot line. Both lots comply with the dimensional requirements for lot coverage and for open space. The front lot has a lot coverage of 15.7%, and the rear lot will have 12.4%. And the front lot will have 75% open space where 50% is required. The rear lot will have 62.4% where 50% is required. And that is it.
Thank you very much. Mr. Quinn, is it?
Yes. Good evening, Mr. Chairman.
Good evening. Address, full name and address?
115 Stanford Street, right down the street from this lot.
Ah, okay. All right. What has changed in the 5 months that you have not been here?
The Conservation Commission told us that we have to have this approval prior to them issuing an order of conditions.
You feel like you're playing pickleball?
A little bit.
Okay. So that's how advanced I am. Tennis is gone, it's pickleball. Listen, We did a little talking about it today with the chicken or the egg thing here. And I want to speak to the letter that we got from neighbors today, talking about the conservation land, the water issues, all of that. And it really made it clear to us that it really doesn't matter. You need both. And that letter that was sent to us should go to the Conservation Commission, not to us. It is nothing that we're going to consider. We are not conservation experts. We're not engineers. And our piece is site plan and zoning. And so that letter does not mean anything to our committee. It's going to mean a lot when you go to conservation. So I don't mind doing this first. It's a shame you've wasted all this time being batted back and forth. So for that, I just want to let my fellow counselors understand that the conservation issues are not our deal, and it does not affect at all our decisions that we make, because that's going to be made separately by the appropriate board that will take that up. Okay? Add to this anything you want. You don't have to, but.
Yes, I'll just reiterate the advantages of this two-lot subdivision, if that's what you want to call it. We comply with just about every rule and regulation that there is: setbacks, floor area ratio, open space, so on and so forth. So these lots are larger than most of the lots in the neighborhood after the subdivision.
And there's a home on either side that we can see on that site plan.
That's correct.
Is there a home at the rear of the property? There is
nothing in the rear.
There is nothing at the rear. And behind those two homes on the either side, there's nothing else. So there's not a fishbowl effect here. It's just two neighbors on either side?
Correct.
Thank you. Okay. I will now, are you done?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, we'll go to the neighborhood. Is there anybody here wishes to speak from the neighborhood, wish to come up? Is there anybody at home? I see George Zhang. Zhang?
Yes, my name is George Zhang. I'm the direct abutting neighbor on 27 Stanleyford Street. So at the last meeting in January, we already expressed our strong objections against the petition. We fear it's bad for the neighborhood, for the environment, for everybody else in like a house value in the area. If we allow this to happen, so it will make a bad precedence for the future developer to do such things. So there were more and more people will do this. So we are strongly against this. And at the last meeting, so the committee asked the builder to go to conservation committee to seek the special permit, but nothing has happened. And also at the last meeting, the committee asked the builder to talk the direct abutting neighbor to seek a mitigation possibility, but it has never happened. Nobody has talked to us. So we feel, we are strongly against this petition.
Thank you, Mr. Zhang. It's been so long. I'll assume that he's correct in saying that we were hoping you would speak to the neighbors. Has anybody reached out to the two neighbors?
I've reached out to all the neighbors in that area. I personally went and I knocked on every door within probably 300 feet of the site. I did speak to Mr. Zhang's wife on 2 or 3 occasions, but she did not want to talk. I attempted many times. Most of the neighbors invited me in. I sat down, had coffee with them, showed them the plans. All of them were in favor.
Okay.
And I did talk to Mrs. Zhang a couple of times, but she refused to allow me the opportunity to speak with her.
All right. Just getting it for the record, Mr. Zhang, just, getting it down. Any counselors? Hold on one second. We have Doris Ann Sweet, please. Go ahead.
Hi. I live around the corner, and my daughter actually lives across the street from this site. And we are very much in favor of this plan going forward. We want to see, we know we need more housing, and to have 2 houses in the neighborhood is something we would welcome. And I walk by that area every day and have been seeing a hole there for a few years. And I would love nothing more than to see the housing built as planned.
Thank you very much.
2 families.
Thank you. Lisa, please state your full name and address.
Hi all. So I'm Lisa. I'm wife of George. I live on the 27 Stanford Street. And first, I just answered to the my queen said he talked to me, tried to talk to me several times, which that's not true. It's only one thing. I was jogging and I'm busy. I need to go home. So I said, I don't have time to talk to now. And that was before the January public hearing. And I think that was also, I sent the email to the counselor, and I think the counselor forwarded our email to him. So I think the day before the public meeting, he came out to try to reach our neighbors. Before they never did. But after the meeting, last January public meeting, I thought I would be reached by him, but no one was reaching to me. So that was not true at all. And I didn't see any improved or changed plans. So that's just, that's why I was very curious. I was waiting for him to reach me, but I wasn't being reached at all. Okay. And also I started, like you said, our main concern was the conservation, right? So like you said, this is not the decision the land use committee can make. But I think on top of this, the conservation land concerns this, the divided the 1 lot to 2 lot will also create some problems, right? And they need special permits. I like all the other neighbors. I really, really like to have a new house to build there because there is a hole, it's not safe, right? But to build a 2 house and will affect on the conservation land and will need to all special permits. That's what I don't like. And I actually started a petition on this issue. As now, I already have more than 200 people supported this petition against this lot to divide it to 2 lots. And I just checked it. Now we have 218 people support the petition that I started.
218 people.
Yeah, I can share the screen, show you.
So that must be people who live far away from this property.
I send out to the next door in the entire Newton.
Okay. All right.
I can show you
No, that's okay. That's okay. I'm speaking to the relevance of 218 people on the street where you may have, 30, 20 households, 15 households.
Yeah. I sent it to the entire Newton.
Entire Newton. Okay.
Yeah, the neighborhood. There's the next door called. I actually posted it on that.
I understand. The relevance of that is watered down the larger that number gets, because you're getting the opinion of people that are just supporting something that they feel they should support but doesn't affect their life. So I'm just letting you know the relevance of that is not as large as the number. Okay? Now, what I'd like to ask you, Ms. Zhang and Mr. Zhang, is what would you like to say to Mr. Quinn tonight, if that was passed? What would you like to see and in mitigation or screening, or what would you ask of him if he was sitting in your living room having coffee with you right now?
So I think we really like to see a new house on the street. That's for sure. But we also don't like to change, character of the neighborhood to be changed. This neighborhood has been always the single family lot. In each lot, there's one house. If we make a precedence like this, then there will be more and more two family will be built on the single lot. So that's very bad for the neighborhood. That's why we ask Mr. Quinn to change the plan. If we can have a single family house built, that will be ideal for the neighborhood, for everybody.
I hear what you would like. They are here because the size of the lot, by special permit, and we can say yes or no, has enough land to put 2 homes on, and that's why we're here. Okay.
Yeah, but
Sarah,
also
excuse me. I'm gonna move on. I'm gonna move on for a second. Okay, I'll come back to you. Sarah Rahman. Sarah.
Yes, thank you, Counselor.
Mhm.
My name is Sarah Rahman. I live at 33 Stannerford Street, so just a couple houses down from where this proposed development is. For my part, I would be pleased to see development go forward. I'm not going to make an opinion on 1 house or 2 house. I will say that that lot has been vacant for a very long time. It has been a hazard for our neighborhood and our community. It's been a public safety risk at times. It's been, there's been all sorts of little incidences there. There's police records about this. It would be nice to have something built there. I absolutely 100% hear my neighbors' concerns about the conservation area. And as long as I think the development is abiding by whatever, the conservation planners and the conservation committee feel would be best to preserve, protect, but also, and this is important, also clean up. I think historically back there behind that lot is a whole lot of junk. We just went through a process working with Conscom to clean up, our wetlands buffer zone. And I hope, this development will take that into consideration as well. When I mean junk, I mean real junk. There's rusty metal, old appliances. There's all sorts of stuff back there. So for all of us who care about preserving that conservation area, I think it would be a huge benefit if this development allowed it as a part of this development, if it could start getting cleaned up for the benefit of, of the natural landscape there. So thank you.
Thank you for your comments, Ms. Rahman. Thank you. And Mr. Quinn, you'll take note of that?
Yes, I have already. Thank you.
Thank you. Lisa, another 30 seconds before we move on. Go ahead.
Yeah, so I just want to say, I think as we are the just elected neighbor, and they have both sides has buildings, so we will be very close to this new lot. If allowed 2 house build it, and our privacy and our property rights will be blocked. So we are actually the most affected neighbors. So that's why we really hope they can sit down to talk to us. It's very important because we are the direct neighbors.
Okay, thank you.
There will be 2 houses, one in front of next to my current house, and one will be on my backyard. So we will be totally affected by that. That's why I'm really,
Thank you. No,
I was very frustrated. Actually, I didn't hear anything from them.
Thank you. Okay, Mr. Quinn, what are your plans for screening? I looked at the landscape plan, but give us a little bit more.
We have a very extensive landscape plan with well in excess of 100 new plants going in, mostly on the lot line to screen both sides. We took that into consideration at the very beginning of the project. There's well in excess of 100 plants.
Okay. All right. Anybody else from the public wish to speak before we take it into the council?
Can I speak just briefly? I just want mention 2 points. One is the lot is large enough for numbers, but the area is a part of conservation buffer zone. So not every area is counted the same. Therefore, even this lot is large enough, it's originally designed for one family to buffer the conservation zone. That's number one. Number two, I'd like to emphasize, if this precedent is established, what you will do if other families along this line of, lots do the same. You will always follow this example to permit such actions. Actually, I have third point is these two commit business. I just wonder if you pass this committee pass, the other committee did not pass, what is going to happen?
It does not. It does not move forward.
Oh, thank you.
Okay. Now, first of all, give me your full name and address, sir.
I'm sorry. This is Chen Dayan. I live in 24 Stanford, across the street, across this proposed place.
Thank you. So the two questions can be answered as follows. Your first question, see the Conservation Committee. They're going to deal with that. And we do not rule or judge on how close this is to the wetlands. That is completely under the Conservation Committee's purview, and they will rule on that. If they rule on it negatively, this will not move forward. Your second question was?
Yeah, it's about a precedent.
Yes.
Are you going to
I'll answer that as follows. Precedents we do take into consideration, but ultimately every ask is an individual ask. And there are specific characteristics to every lot, to every petition and what they would like to build. And the next one that comes down from this street may not pass. It may have a little less land, may have different issues. The builder may want to do something that we think is not appropriate for the neighborhood. So I can't say that if we let one, the other ones will fall like dominoes. We take every one at face value. Mr. Quinn?
I'm guessing that there's approximately 50 house lots in that immediate area. There might be one other one that could conform to this, that could ask for this kind of permit.
Okay.
Most of the lots are 10 or 11,000.
I don't know that for a fact, but the attorney actually lives in the neighborhood, and he is stating that there aren't a lot of lots that they have to exceed the size of 2 buildable single-family lots. This is north of 23,000, 25,000 square feet, 25,000 square feet.
A little over 25,000.
A little over 25,000. So, as for precedents and as for this happening all over the place, I wouldn't hold on to that fear too much. Okay? Thank you. I'm going to take it into the council now. Questions, comments from the councilors? Councilor Lucas?
Thank you. Mr. Quinn, I was just looking at the plans over the weekend to see what had changed, and just correct me along the way. Previously, you had 2 curb cuts. Now you only have 1. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, I think that was my biggest concern from the previous plans, and that you've fixed that up. So from a site plan, everything seems conforming to me. If you're standing on Stanford Street and you're looking at the house in the front, would one be able to see the second house in the back?
On the right side, you would be able to. On the left side, you would not.
Okay. All right. So it's almost blocked.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. All right. That's fine. I'm good. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Mr. Quinn.
Thank you, Councilor Kelly.
Thank you. I'm not sure I understood this accurately. So if this is for Mr. Quinn or Pat Kemet, the plan, is it true that in order to allocate the correct number of square feet to each property, that the property that runs up the left side of the front house, that little strip, and then goes around to the back, does that get included in the land of the front house, or did I just read that
Yes,
plan
yes,
wrong?
you are absolutely correct.
So I will say that is a little bit of a weird thing when you think about how that's going to be maintained over time and who's going to pay, you know, what landscaper to maintain it. It's just a funny little way of finagling the space to make it work. And I say that just as a site planner, and I know that it works. The other thing that you are actually looking for relief on, despite saying that you were meeting all the not needing any waivers, was the front setback of the rear house from the front house, correct?
Well, it's allowed under special permit.
Well, yeah, that's why you're here. So that is a request, and I just wondered why it was pretty close. Why could you just not back that house up a little bit? It looked like there was enough room for the back deck to not encroach on the conservation line. Like, could you have not actually made that fit according to the setback requirements?
I'm going to be very honest. We're trying to bring the houses as far away from the landfill, which is directly behind us, as possible.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Okay. I understand that. Thank you for being direct and honest about it. And I guess I would say to the Zangs, who I did respond to in writing today, I hear you, and I heard you in January, and I understand that anything different next door is a change for you, and it visually will be impacting you. But as I'm sure you know, the view of your neighbor's yard isn't a property right of your own. So, I mean, we do remind people of this all the time. And I know it's sort of a hard pill to swallow, especially when you might be looking at a vacant lot. Any building is very different. And I'm sorry that you view this as a real infraction on your enjoyment and your rights. I'll say too, to a comment made by actually Doris Ann Sweeten, a little bit by Sarah Rahman, whose points I very much appreciated hearing. I'm not opposed to two houses on a lot of this size in this neighborhood and proximity to other things. I understand that the Zangs and 217 other people across the city don't agree with me on that. But to the point that Doris Ann Sweet made, we really do need more housing in Newton. And this site looks to me like it can accommodate that. And I don't think it's going to lower your property values at all. I imagine it might increase them actually compared to what's there now, which is an empty, overgrown lot that the rear of it seems to be being used as a dumping ground. So I just wanted to point out, I think that weird configuration of assigning some sort of peripheral area to the front house might later be a peculiar maintenance issue, but I will be voting in favor of this. Thank you.
Thank you. A few things. First of all, thanks for all those comments. It's all things that need to be said. To the Zangs, my day job is I own a valuation company, an appraisal company, and I will tell you that your value of your house will be just fine and will go up from what's there right now. Mr. Quinn, is there going to be landscaping that will not need tending on that left-hand side that goes all the way down to the wetlands?
I don't follow the question.
The strip of land that belongs to the front house that goes along the left-hand side all the way to the back, the wetlands in the back that you're counting for the front lot probably doesn't need any tending. We're asking about along the left side.
So it'll be landscape with shrubbery, trees, and mulch. So that doesn't have to be, there's be no mowing there.
That's what I'm looking for. Okay, Councilor Kelly? Yep, okay. Ms. Zhang, we really do need to move forward. Is your hand up because you have something else, or do you take your hand down?
Yeah, I just want to say one thing. So the lot is big enough, just like our neighbors said, but the thing is, 1/3 of them, it's the wetland. So you really cannot call. And also it's a really steep slope, deep slope. And the front house and the rear house will have a very little, like, I think the frontage like between the two houses, they are too close. They are very close, right? And I'm not really concerned. Our property value is concerned about we will be blocked. The lights, our backyard light will be blocked also, right? So
Your backyard lighting will be blocked?
yeah, because of the two houses. So I was wondering if the second house can be a little bit smaller, or just like last time, I think in January, I think one of the council was suggested if we can have the second house a little bit smaller, because actually the two house, the second house will be very close to the front house, the rear house. They don't have enough the setback. This is just,
Okay.
just what my thought. I mean,
Okay.
I don't know.
Thank you. Thank you for your comments. Appreciate it. Okay. Anybody else from the council wish to make a comment or have a question from the committee? I do not see any.
I'm happy to make a motion if you would like to entertain that, Mr.
I think it's time.
Our Ward 4 counselor is not here tonight, so I would make a motion to close the public hearing and make a motion to approve when that time comes after we look at the conditions.
Okay. Can we have a motion to close the public hearing? All in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Abstentions? The public hearing is closed. We have a motion to approve by Councillor Kelly. Can we take a look at a council order, Ms. Kemet?
For conditions, we have 1, the site is an appropriate location for the proposed rear lot subdivision because the proposed lots will be used as single-family dwellings and allowed use in the district. 2, the rear lot subdivision will not adversely affect the neighborhood because the lot sizes will exceed what is required. 3, the rear lot subdivision will not create a nuisance or serious hazard to vehicles or pedestrians because the driveway on Stanford Street will provide adequate sight lines and required parking will be contained on site. 4, access to the site over streets is appropriate for the types and number of vehicles involved. 5, the height of the proposed dwellings are similar to the heights of abutting residential and accessory buildings. 6, the massing and scale of both proposed dwellings will be in character and consistent with adjacent existing and allowed residential structures in the surrounding district. 7, there are no significant topographic differentials in the project. The heights of the proposed dwellings appear consistent with the minor natural variations in the landscape. 8, the landscape plan includes the installation of trees and other vegetation, which will screen the dwellings from abutting residences. 9, vehicular access will be provided from the curb cut on Stanford Street. 10, the project provides a conservation benefit because the project includes several plantings and landscaping as indicated in the landscape plan. 11, the AC units will not negatively impact either the proposed rear lot development or any abutting properties because they meet the required setbacks for the zone. 12, the proposed siting of the front dwelling and the rear dwelling are appropriate given the scales and locations of abutting residential structures. And 13, the lighting will be residential in character and will not impact abutting properties.
Okay, thank you very much. Conditions?
For conditions, we have plan referencing. Appliances and utilities for the building will be all electric. An order of conditions from the Conservation Commission will be required prior to receiving a building permit. An operations and management plan for stormwater management will be required prior to building permit. pest control will apply, and standard building permit conditions and occupancy conditions would apply.
Okay, thank you. This is our piece of the puzzle to the neighborhood. They still have conservation to go to, and that'll be their last hurdle. We have a motion to approve. Please call the roll.
Counselor Bowman,
Aye.
Counselor Downs,
Aye.
Counselor Greenberg,
Aye.
Counselor Kelly,
Aye.
Counselor Laredo, Counselor Lipoff,
Aye.
Counselor Lucas,
Aye.
and Counselor Markowitz.
Counselor Laredo has been recused. Just take note of that. We have Cassidy Flynn from the clerk's office and our new clerk for land use welcome, Scott Matthews. Okay. Good luck with the next ask. Take care.
Thank you very much.
All right. Take care. The next item of the night is Yan Mei Lin, 34-20.
Sorry, can I just have a quick question? So you just said that
The public
they have
hearing is closed. Please, if you have questions, you can send them to the clerk. Okay?
Oh,
You know what? Go ahead. You got one question. I'll answer it right now. Go ahead.
so they will go to the, they needed to go to the conservation committee. So there will be another hearing?
Yes, it
Oh,
is. It's another hearing. And do you have that on the schedule, Mr. Quinn? Do you have a night yet in front of conservation? Okay, when you have that, will you please let the Zangs know when that is, and maybe go by and speak with them? They're your neighbor, and talk about screening?
I would enjoy that.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, I would love to have, I hope he can talk to us.
He's going to. He's going to knock on your door and
Okay.
And he'll tell you when that meeting is. All right.
Okay,
Thank you very much. Good night. Take care. All right. Yan Mei Lin requests to exceed FAR and to allow parking within 5 feet of the street at 50 Elmore Street. Do we have an update from Mr. Gleba on this?
Yes, we do. Let me share my screen. All right, so this was in front of the committee, I believe about 3 months ago. There has been 1 or 2 changes. As shown here, there has been a change in the relief that's needed. The relief to allow parking within 5 feet of the street. We'll talk more about this later. That was for the driveway on the left-hand side. That driveway has been eliminated. But in addition to the FAR relief, and instead of the relief for parking within 5 feet of the street, the petitioners are seeking to waive the maximum driveway entrance width to allow that entrance to be more than 20 feet. For the record, the original relief is shown at the top. The modified relief is shown at the bottom. Again, still seeking to exceed FAR. And to raise the FAR from 0.38 to 0.47, where 0.42 is the maximum allowed by right. That is to allow the construction of a new garage in the back right of the parcel. And as I mentioned, there have been changes to the proposed driveway or driveways. If we do, I believe we went over the criteria the first time, but it is the special permit criteria to allow the proposed attached garage and the driveway entrance now exceeding 20 feet in width, whether it would adversely affect the neighborhood, create a serious nuisance or hazard, whether access is appropriate for the types and numbers of vehicles. An important criteria would be number 5. I mean, they're all important, but whether granting the exception to the literal compliance with the requirement that driveways not have an entrance width exceeding 20 feet, whether that would be in the public interest, in the interest of safety, or the protection of environmental features, or something to do with the lot. And the FAR relief criteria is shown, again, to allow that FAR 0.47 or 0.42 is the maximum. Whether that increase would not be in derogation of the size, scale, and design of other structures in the neighborhood. So that's the criteria. Here we see the site in blue. So to get into the changes, we have two site plans here. The existing is on the left. It shows the existing gravel driveway on the left side of the property and no garage. The previous plan is similar to the modified proposed plan on the right, except that that existing gravel driveway was going to be shortened from the back and paved with less than 5 feet behind the back of that 19.9 parking space there. I wouldn't need relief for that. And the petitioners propose a new driveway as well on the right-hand side to reach that garage in the back right of the property. As the modified proposed plan shows, that existing driveway on the left has now been deleted, and the plan now is a single driveway on the right side of the property. The driveway itself would be 18 feet wide for its length from the back of the sidewalk to the front of the garage. And the curb cut, the entrance, would be 21.9 feet, which is 1.9 feet wider than that maximum 20 feet allowed. Just to refresh memory, so that's the changes to the site plan. There are no changes proposed to the design of that garage, which would be in the back right of the property, served by that driveway. And just the front elevation, for example, is shown on the upper left of this drawing. So those are the proposed changes, and hopefully we can answer any questions the committee might have.
Thank you. Does the petitioner want to add anything to this?
Hi, good evening, everybody. My name is Yan Mei Lin. I'm the homeowner of 50 Elmore Street. As Michael mentioned, that I have the hearing on February 7, and then we have the left driveway, and then right now we remove it, and then to do the right one. And then I understand that special permit, like councilors and the chairmen and the neighbors' opinion are important. And then thank you for giving me a chance to describe what we think, why we need a wider opening. First one would be convenience, because why we want to do a two-car garage besides the storage, we want to a two-car driveway is that, so in that case, me and my husband's car can park in at the same time and then to back up any time due to our different schedule. And then also we have 2 young kids. And then also we live with 2 in-law at 70. So we have another thing going on. We need to just make sure that if we do the garage, we want to, convenience is the number one. Second one would be the safety. When we first moved in about 1 year, 9 months ago, and at the time, because our existing driveway is not easy to park at the same time, we need to back up back and forth. So my husband has one truck, sometimes park on the street, and one of our neighbor kindly said that, can you park inside? And then we said, okay, because I know that Elmore Street is not a very wide street, but it's not like, we try our best to park inside. So after that, we try to park inside. At that time, I said, I wish we have a 2-car garage. We can just all park inside. So this is for safety, number one. And for number 2 is on our proposed design, there is a light pole next to there. So for me, I feel like this is a public thing. We try to make sure that we want a little wider radius so we can, no matter back up or driving, will be easier. And then the third thing is that the 2 neighbors opposite our house, their parking space and our proposed parking space is more than, our 2 neighbor parking space next to each other and then face our proposed parking space. From my point of view, because this one it's more like create a triangle. It's more like an area that I feel like if our area has a wider curb opening, it'll be safer for everybody if we back up or they back up. And then for us,
Yeah. No, it's okay.
sorry.
No, go ahead.
Yeah,
no, you got it all. The petition is for a two-car garage, and I don't know if anybody has an issue with that. Your driveway before was quite narrow. This one takes care of that. The question that I have, that a lot of people on this committee have, is just what I said before to the other petitioner. When I said, listen, the law is 20 feet. That's what you can do. You're going 1.5 feet wider, and we're scratching our head on that because 20 is wide enough for you to do everything that you just described you'd like to do. So the extra 1.5 feet that's causing an issue here for you getting your permit, we're scratching our head and don't understand why that 1.5 feet, 20 is much wide enough, and that's our law.
Sure. My question is because when our engineer designed the corner block, because actually it's 18 feet until, and the outside, we measured the outside is 21.9. So because it's a corner block, unless if we can do the dive, if we can do the, the dive stone, 20 would be good. So I don't know if it's okay.
If the opening's if the curb cut, which is the opening, is 20 feet, just 1.5 feet, okay? This would take that off the table and make it much easier for you to, for this committee to be amenable. It's just, the same way we support a petitioner for playing by the rules and going up to 20, we have to have some concerns when you go over if it's not for a good reason. So that's why I'm pushing back a little bit, trying to get you to respond to this.
Sure, Mr. Chairman. So if we do 20, it would be okay, right?
20 foot, we still have to vote on everything else, but this is a stickler point here for some people who have, who are scratching their head about this, including, planning can't understand this either. Let me go to the public, and we'll come back to you, okay?
Thank you.
Anybody in the public wish to speak on this petition? Councilor Laredo?
So just like last time we had, a couple items ago, we had someone who, as you said, Chair Lipoff, wanted to play within the rules. If this petitioner has any articulable reason for going beyond the 20 peculiarities of the site, some difficulties turning, things like that, I would be very sympathetic to that. I am not someone who, thinks we have to impose an arbitrary standard just because it's there. On the other hand, if there's no reason for it that can be articulated, I don't think it should be beyond the 20. There's a reason for the rules. We ask people to play by them. So, unless a petitioner has some, good reason for it, I think we voted 20 and leave it at that. Thanks.
My thoughts exactly, Councilor Laredo. Anybody else from the, we have Maggie Alexander.
Yeah, hi, good evening. I'm Maggie Alexander at 62 Elmore Street. And I just wanted to raise the concern that the driveway, the length of the driveway and the width of the driveway would effectively asphalt about 1/3 of the property. And it goes very close to a line of hedges at 52 Elmore Street that would probably be harmed should they proceed as planned. Where it's 18 inches, that's not quite as close to the two sides, But if you look at the way the house is, to put a 22, almost a 22-foot opening, you would, you get very close to both sides, very close to the house itself and very close to the side where the hedges are. Of course, we have no, you know, I certainly have no objection to them wanting to get a garage. That makes a lot of sense, but I don't understand the need for such, you know, a third of the property to be asphalted.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Anybody else from the committee or the public? Did somebody raise their hand in here? Councillor Lucas?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. So yes, I've been following this project closely ever since we first saw it a few months ago. I am glad that there is now one curb cut and not two. Regarding the driveway, the curb cut width, it's 20 feet for a reason. I have not heard a reason why it should be greater than 20 feet. So I would hope that Miss Lynn can reduce it to 20 feet. Regarding the driveway, I do have a question for planning. What is the distance from the driveway to the property line? And do we have anything that controls that, how further into the property the driveway needs to be?
It looks like that distance from the front of the garage to the back of the sidewalk would be about 102, I think, let's just say about 70 to 75 feet, just doing math quickly. So yeah, no rules as to, I mean, that a garage cannot be too far back into a property, so long as it observes the required setbacks.
Yeah, I think Mr. Gleba is right. I think there are some restrictions on multi-family uses with driveways close to the side lot lines or and rear lot lines, but I don't think that's the case with single and two-family homes.
Okay.
Okay, all right. Other than that, I mean, the driveway width is 18 feet. We're still good on open space. So from that standpoint, I'd say it's just a little bit too wide, but I don't, that's my take on it for now. But I do hope that the curb cut width is shortened to 20 feet.
Councillor Bowman?
Yes, thank you very much. Certainly an area of our zoning that needs to be updated. I will remind my colleagues that 20 feet is what we would set as a good but minimum width for a commercial two-way driveway, the sort of place that would see, you know, hundreds of vehicles coming in and out every day is 20 feet wide. And I think that's why myself and the neighbors are concerned. It's one thing when a driveway is that wide, and as your neighbors across the street, it's a two-car width driveway that's one car width long. It's really sort of the only option that they might have. But given that you have a two-car garage and a very long driveway, I think your neighbors were very much hoping that you would drop this down to a much more reasonable driveway opening width, like 14 to 16 feet. And the reason we care about how wide a driveway opening is the wider the driveway opening is, the faster it makes it possible for you to pull in and out of a driveway. The faster you can pull in and out of a driveway, the less safe it is for the pedestrians that are on the sidewalk. We really want people to have to slow down before they turn in and out. And of course, it reduces by some feet the amount of time that a pedestrian is exposed to somebody pulling in or out. Your neighbors have written to the council to say what lovely people you are and how amazing they think you guys are, but that they were really hoping you would consider making a less wide driveway for the reasons that we heard from Ms. Alexander and others, the concern about the hedge, the just concern about the amount of pavement. This driveway is very long. You'll have room to park 2 cars in the garage. And at 78 feet, I think that's what we just heard, 6 cars at the width that you're going here. So 8 cars, you could park 8 cars in that driveway if you're willing to stack them. So I think that's what people were hoping, is if you would consider just making it a little bit smaller. It'll give you more room for planting, and I think it'll be more in keeping with the driveways around that. But certainly the zoning says you can go up to, at the moment, up to 20 feet. So, but that's the consideration that the neighbors were looking for. Thank you.
And as for commercial parking and equipment, if your family is in a commercial business that has commercial vehicles, are they? Trucks? Commercial trucks? Okay. Just one truck, yeah, okay. Just, you know, if that's a regular pickup truck, that's great. If it's a commercial vehicle of a certain length, it won't be able to be parked there, but that's, if it's just a pickup truck, it's not a big deal. But if it's a commercial vehicle, and I don't know, I don't have the dimensions, but if it exceeds a certain length, you can't park it there. So just to let you know, your neighbors probably will follow on that. Councillor Kelly?
Thank you. I would definitely like to align myself with the many comments from most of my colleagues that the curb cut of over 20 feet is not something I'm in favor of, and if the petitioner is willing to bring that down to 20, which is the maximum we allow, I would be fine with that. If the petitioner is interested in narrowing the width of the driveway most of the way up, and then it can flare out again as it goes into the garage, as I think some neighbors have requested, I would certainly be happy to see that, but I would not insist on that. And as has been talked about earlier tonight, that's not really something that we should be doing, is insisting that people do things that, you know, go beyond what we require. But it is something for the petitioner to think about in terms of paving and plowing and shoveling and neighbor relations. But if you would agree to the 20-foot maximum curb cut, I think that would go a long way, as Chair Lipoff mentioned early on this item, a long way towards getting us to a yes on that. Thanks.
Thank you. Ms. Lynn, can you come up? Would you agree to the 20-foot curb cut?
Yes.
Yes, okay. That's all we need to hear. Thank you. Councillor Laredo?
Yeah, I'll try to be brief. I do want to point out to my colleagues that there's we heard from the neighbor just now about and some others about the length of the driveway, and I agree it's long, but there's a tension here. We've actually trying to encourage people to put their driveways towards the rear of their lots so that the house is the prominent feature rather than the garage. And they're trying to do that. So in order to do that, you have to have a driveway. There's a trade-off. If you want to have shorter driveways, you can put your garages right up near the street. But we've made a policy decision, I think a good one, that aesthetically that's not where we want to go. And I'll add that come by my house, but my driveway and my neighbor's driveway are directly abut my neighbor's property. And that's actually something that I think is beneficial from a zoning perspective. If we're trying to encourage folks to live in somewhat more compact lots, you want to actually be able to use that land, have the driveway abut right next to your neighbor's yard, and then have additional open space that's usable, rather than create a 5, 6, or 8 foot buffer of grass, for example, next to a driveway. So I'm just going to leave it. I hope we approve this tonight, but I really would urge us not to apply some perhaps simplistic views or rules, and understand that there's a lot of conflicting stuff that goes on here. I'll leave it at that. I'm ready to move approval, but I think it's Councilor Lucas's ward, so I'll defer to him.
Okay. Is there anybody else before we go to Councillor Lucas? Councillor Lucas.
Motion to close public hearing and motion to approve.
We have a motion to close the public hearing. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
Abstentions? The public hearing is closed. We have a motion to approve with a condition added of a 20-foot wide curb cut instead of the 21.6. Can we take a look at a council order, Mr. Gleba?
Okay, so this is.
You've already edited it to 20 feet.
Yeah.
Oh, no, you have to. Yeah.
You know, so we'll just make that reflect the 20 feet.
Right.
It's an appropriate location. We'll take out the 20 feet again, just talk about the detached garage. No nuisance, access to the site is appropriate. Number 5 would come out completely. And then number 6 is simply the FAR. Finding that the increased FAR is consistent with and not in derogation size, etc. of other structures in the neighborhood, as there are similar dwellings throughout the neighborhood with detached garages in the rear of the property.
Mr. Gleba, this does not have to be subject to second call if you just get us the council order with the appropriate 20 feet in it, correct?
Exactly. Any reference to the driveway would simply be taken out.
That's fine. Excellent. Thank you. Okay. Standard conditions. We have a motion to approve. Please call the roll, Mr. Matthews.
Counselor Bowman.
Aye.
Counselor Downs.
Aye.
Counselor Greenberg.
Aye.
Counselor Kelly.
Aye.
Counselor Laredo.
Aye.
Counselor Lipoff.
Aye.
Counselor Lucas.
Aye.
Counselor Markowitz. And 7 in favor.
Thank you very much. Take care. All right, good luck. Okay, the last item of the night is 141-23, Newton Wellesley Hospital, a request to amend special permit 470-04 to allow existing shell space to be used for 24 inpatient beds at 2014 Washington Street. Ms. Sandoval. Oh,
sure, let me just...
Before that, I see Councilor Greenberg's hand is up. She is recused from this one.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
Okay, let me just share my screen. This is petition number 141-23 for 2014 Washington Street. This is a request to amend special permit 470-04 to allow the addition of 24 inpatient beds in the existing shell. Just a little bit of background on this. Newton Wellesley Hospital was granted a special permit 470-04 in 2005 for a building addition for a new emergency department, ambulatory services, parking, and a new shell space. They were granted a subsequent request for a special permit to finish the existing shell space in 2008. They never exercised this special permit, so therefore it is null. And that is why they are here seeking to complete this project to finish the shell space, which is approximately 22,000 square feet for an inpatient bed facility. And that requires a special permit, and this is to support their existing emergency department. So when reviewing this request, the council should consider whether the site in SR2 zoning district is an appropriate location for the appropriate location for the expansion of hospital uses, or whether the proposed expansion of the non-conforming use will adversely affect the neighborhood. There will be no nuisance or serious hazard to vehicles or pedestrians, and access to the site over streets is appropriate for the types and numbers of vehicles involved. So this is just showing the location of Newton Wellesley Hospital. It has single-family residences to the north, to the east, and to the south. It is very close to the I-95 interchange on Washington Street. Across the street is Woodlawn Golf Club, and it is a short walk to the MBTA Woodland train station. This is a existing condition site plan and just kind of showing some of the main features of the site. There's a main driveway at the northern end and a secondary driveway to the south. The emergency department area is kind of in this vicinity. Oops, sorry. The emergency department parking is located here. And there are no proposed changes to the site plan. There are no exterior building facade changes. There are no changes to access, driveway, or exterior parking. All changes proposed are interior only. And that includes the shell space, the finishing of the shell space, and an internal reconfiguration of parking, removing 60 parking spaces underground or in the garage level, and converting that to storage. And this is just showing the proposed floor plan for the 24 beds for the emergency room. And these were transportation elements, conditions that were required as part of the original special permit 47004 to finish the shell space. And we just made sure the petitioner updated those and provided those, and those are part of your packet. The first one is an updated traffic study. The traffic study noted no substantial increase in delays at area intersections as a result of the project. It noted that parking is adequate to serve the needs of the new space, even with the reduction of the 60 spaces. And they provided an updated TDM plan with some features such as MBTA passes for employees, secure bicycle storage facilities, ride matching, carpool incentives, bike to work program, on-charge electric vehicle charging, and shuttles. And we did, the transportation coordinator did review the traffic study and concurred with the main findings of the study that there would be no substantial delays at area intersections and that there would be adequate parking to meet demand. And there was no further review required by engineering or historic at this time. So happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Sandoval. And now we'll hear from the petitioner, Mr. Stearns. Good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. With me tonight from the hospital is Kirsty Boyd, the Director of Project Management, Justin Ferbert, the Director of Facilities, Engineering, and Maintenance, and with us on Zoom is the President and Chief Operating Officer of the hospital, Ellen Maloney. So the way we would like to proceed is...
Just your full name and address.
For the record, Frank Stearns, 10 St. James Ave, Boston.
Okay, thank you. Continue.
So I'd like to allow Ellen to speak briefly about the critical need for this project from the hospital's perspective, and then we'll do the land use presentation.
Sure, welcome. Go ahead.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for the opportunity to speak. Newton Wellesley Hospital is your community hospital, and we are here to serve the community. As many of you may recognize, we have seen a sharp increase in the volume of patients that are seeking care at Newton Wellesley in our emergency department. Our volume historically pre-pandemic had been about 150 to 160 patients per day that were seen. We are now up to, on average, 220 patients per day in our emergency department. A significant percentage of our patients do get admitted and need a medical bed. This new 24-bed unit will enable us to decrease the amount of boarding that is currently happening in the emergency department. Boarding happens when we're at capacity and do not have an inpatient bed immediately. Sometimes our patients, we can see up to 20 patients a day boarding in the ED, sometimes for as many as 12 hours. We want to ensure that we're able to serve our patients with this additional capacity. Also just want to let you know, as a member of the Mass General Brigham system, we have the full support of system leadership to pursue this project, and truly just want to ensure that we have the capacity to serve the patients that come to seek care here at Newton Wellesley from our community.
Thank you so much, Ms. Maloney. Thanks for being here. Mr. Stearns?
Thank you. And I just want to make a quick observation. I appreciate the change in your procedures from having the planning department speak first rather than the petitioner, because that puts the burden on the petitioner not to be repetitive of what the planning department has said, which was the planning department's problem for many, many years.
Who knew we could make things better here at Land Use, right? Go ahead.
So as the planner, Alyssa Sandoval, said, this is an interior construction project only. Slide of the photograph. Next one. Next one. This one. So, and the planning department had a good visual orientation as well. So, you know, in 2005, we did a major project. We built the new emergency department. We expanded the parking garage in the rear. And we built 2 levels, 2 floors, occupiable floors above the emergency department where the arrow is pointing. One of those floors was not programmed at the time. The critical need was to get the emergency department up and running. And that floor, which we call the shell space, was by special permit allowed to be used for storage. And it became a very sort of central storage hub for all kinds of medical equipment, gurneys, you name it. Every department had some storage in that space. The goal here is to take that space and convert it to a 24-bed inpatient unit and allow it to serve patients like Ellen was just saying. And the intention all along of the City Council back in 2005 was that we would take a look at traffic and parking principally as a way to validate for the City Council that when we do pick a use, essentially, for, you know, it could be offices, it could be surgery, it could be so the chosen use based on the critical need is inpatient beds. And we commissioned a traffic study by VHB, we commissioned a parking study by VHB, and we're very comfortable and agree with their conclusions as the city does through its internal peer review, that we're not going to create any impacts on the traffic flow at the access points, and that we have, though we park a lot of people at this campus, patients, visitors, and employees, we have multiple parking lots, we have the 2 garages, and there are times during the day when the parking is approaching peak, and that's why we have active valet operations to help manage that parking, but we do have parking capacity to service the new inpatient unit and still have adequate parking spaces for people to be able, for patients and visitors and employees to be able to self-park. So next slide. So we just have a couple of slides for the record, really just showing again what Ellen pointed out orally in her presentation about how the med-surg operational occupancy is very high. How we need to meet that demand, we need to meet that need. The next slide is just in graph format showing the number of admissions. It's not to make you focus on the actual numbers, but just to make you focus on the rising trend, and that our admissions for people who need inpatient beds. Of course, the hospital, I think everybody in the community knows, we provide a lot of outpatient services as well, but inpatient is where the critical need is, where the growth in utilization is, and where we have to fill that need. This slide just reinforces when during the course of the day The parking utilization starts out pretty small when most of us are still asleep, rises substantially during the morning, peaks after lunch, early afternoon, mid-afternoon, but we have adequate parking to meet the demand for this project. So the special permit criteria, I don't really need to go through them fully, but I think you know them very well. It's the construction of this project will be internal to the hospital, to the built shell already. It won't be, it's not substantially more detrimental. The public convenience and welfare will be served. And in terms of the specific zoning criteria in the ordinance, the use of the site by adding an inpatient floor is appropriate. It won't adversely affect the neighborhood. There will no nuisance or hazard to vehicles or pedestrians based on the professional input from VHB and the active parking management by Newton Wellesley. The access points are not changing and they're appropriate. So with that, we ask you to review this pursuant to your criteria, and we hope you adopt the special permit. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there anybody from the community that wishes to speak on this? Come on up, state your name and address. Make sure that microphone is on.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Excellent. Excellent. Sorry. Hi, we're Marjorie and John Summers. We live at 238 Dorset Road, which is just across the street from the emergency access point to the rear part of Newton Wellesley. I'm really glad I came tonight because I was looking for assurances regarding parking, and the neighbors have no idea that this was going to include taking away 60 parking spots, which I think is very interesting. It wasn't described at all in the Newton Wellesley Hospital letter that they sent dated April 25th. They just talked about the beds.
Can you hold on one second? Are you taking away 60 parking spaces? That, I didn't hear that in the planning presentation or yours, so I'm stopping things and getting that right.
Sure thing. So the hospital, by right, has already been in the process of converting an area that had been utilized for valet to create the replacement storage space, the space that's presently being used for storage in the shell. That's a by right project. It has a full building permit from Inspectional Services. There was no zoning triggered by that project. This hospital not only continues to meet its actual parking need, but it totally continues to exceed the zoning minimum parking requirement.
So whatever parking that you're taking away for this by right, it's by right because you had extra parking spaces.
We have when you look at your rezoning initiative, when you do the zoning parking calculations for the hospital, we actually have hundreds of zoning surplus parking stalls. The slide makes it clear that we have surplus actual parking stalls, but we have to monitor that, and that's why we have active valet.
Got you. Thank you for the clarification.
You're welcome.
Okay, continue. Did you give me your name and address in the beginning?
Sure. Sorry, I'm a little shorter. Marjorie and John Summers.
Great, thank you. Continue.
Yep. So we're here basically to ask about the parking, to make sure that there's sufficient parking. We're not opposed to growth of the hospital. We understand that that's necessary for the hospital and the community and can be beneficial to everybody. We're looking at three things. One, sufficiency of parking. Two, managing access to and from those parking lots. And number three, actual utilization of those parking lots by their employees and their construction contractors. For instance, going to managing access and egress. I don't know if all of you are familiar with the emergency limited access road that they can use on Marathon Monday. John, do you want to pull up? I have my IT guy here. If he can share, it's from Google Maps, so you can see it.
No, that's okay. No sharing. Nope, we don't do that. Only the petitioner and planning. I'm sorry.
Okay.
We typically give 2 minutes to speak, so I'm going to give you 4, but continue on.
All right, so great. Basically, if you look at Google Maps, the access road has been expanded over the last 5 years or so, so it shows up as a full road off of Dorset that backs into the parking lot in Newton Wellesley Hospital. Why is that an issue? It's an issue because during previous construction for the emergency room and the parking garage, the Newton Hospital contractors would move the barrier and drive up and down the access road that is only supposed to be used 1 day a year to access easily and leave the hospital. That's not okay. We also have an issue now with the GPS understanding due to Marathon Monday that that's an access point to the hospital, and we now have people being directed to Dorset Road, up the access road to Newton Wellesley Hospital. It's a very, very easy fix. There used to be maintained a very simple chain between 2 poles on the Dorset side that would prevent contractors, employees, anybody driving up and down and using that. With the increased use of the hospital, especially with the construction over the next year, we would ask that the hospital, as part of their plan, restore that very simple barrier on the Dorset side to give a visual indication that this is not for public use, unless as for Marathon Monday. The other issue is, so that's a very simple restoration of a fix, that simple chain. The second one is Newton Wellesley used to partner very well with the Dorset Road area, and they had, I'll call it a parking facilitator, that if your contractors or employees were parking on Dorset Road, you could make a call, say, hey, Joe, you know, this is happening. They would send out a Newton Wellesley security card, check it out, and then very kindly let their employees and construction workers know, hey, use our ample parking. Don't park on the neighborhood roads. That's not appropriate. They no longer have that. My thought is that perhaps Justin Ferber, who is here, who's being put out as the neighborhood liaison, could step into that role again. It was very effective and very much appreciated by the neighborhood. So 2 basically restoration of tools, put that chain link up on the Dorset ride side, and also have someone we can call to say, hey, your construction guy is parking. 2 weeks ago today, we had a commercial size vehicle parked there with a trailer attached to the back, and hanging on the rear view mirror said, Newton Wellesley Hospital contractor parking permit. It was Wise Construction who parked on Dorset Road to provide services to Newton Wellesley Hospital. During this construction, again, I'm not opposed to growth at all. I just want it to be managed appropriately.
Thank you. Could you please respond to these 2 points?
So one of the things we'll do in the ordinary course, and one of the things that the planning department suggested was related to this project, that we have a construction management plan that be reviewed and approved by planning, by ISD, by engineering, by fire department, et cetera. We filed that with the planning department. The contractor will absolutely meet with the city officials regarding the requirements of that construction management plan, and we're confident that that will get approved and will be followed. The hospital definitely has parking staff, and I know that on behalf of Mr. Ferbert and others at the hospital, including the parking coordination team, they'd be happy to meet and discuss these topics with the neighbors. They'd have no problem with that. They'd embrace it. We sent out a letter in advance of the legal notice that the city sent out for this hearing to all the legal abutters, apprising them of the project and giving them Mr. Ferbert's contact information if they wanted to speak to him, and he'll definitely do that. In terms of the utilization of the fire road, The fire road is not something that is used routinely. It's partly controlled by the city, in fact, maintained by the hospital. There's a lot of coordination with the fire department and emergency services with respect to how that fire road is operated on a very limited basis, how it's maintained. And again, that'd be something they'd be happy to meet with the neighbors about and discuss it with them, and don't have a problem with that.
By law, does it need to have a chain or some barrier there?
It has a long history, and it needs to be accessible to the satisfaction of the fire department, and it, from time to time, needs maintenance. It needs plowing. It needs servicing of overgrown vegetation, and from time to time, like a landscaping maintenance truck would go down that road in order to efficiently perform that type of landscaping maintenance. And, you know, I know it was mentioned that someone from Wise Construction, I can't speak to one incident, but again, they'll be happy to share the aspects of the construction management plan which require very specifically where employees of the contractors are allowed to park and where they're not allowed to park.
Well, great. You've got some neighbors here, and it'd be great if you connect and have some plan, you know, that I'm sure this is what the TDM is supposed to be about, but to take it a little further and actually have a conversation in this post-COVID world, we can do that now with the neighbors here would be a nice thing to do. Thank you.
He's happy to do it.
Thank you. State your name and address.
Oh, hi. Sorry, my name is Deborah Waller, and I live at 10 Bon Air Circle. I've lived there since November 1993. I'm sorry, I'm not going to object to the request, okay? Because I do feel the emergency room is a vital need for people to have, and it should be expanded, okay? Because it's really a crisis thing in our country. I'm not objecting to that, okay? However, I am objecting to the fact that the hospital board order 47004 you're asking for an amendment for failed to satisfy conditions 29 and 30 of 47004. So I think this has to be brought to everyone's attention. You did not satisfy those conditions, Mr. Stearns. Furthermore, the hospital's attorney engaged in 5 separate bad faith actions with regard to condition 30, which is this promised sale of Bon Air Circle houses. I'm going to list the bad faith things that their attorney did, and then I'm going to ask for some special permit conditions to be added to the amendment. I'm not asking for the emergency room to be smaller or to be denied or anything, but the behavior of the hospital attorneys has been so awful. I would like some additional permit conditions to be added. I'm very sorry, my throat here. So during this special permit process, the hospital attorney claimed the houses must be sold at fair market value to satisfy the attorney general. But then they wrongly defined fair market value as cost basis in the actual special permit condition. He also added a needless 8-year delay on the sale. This is all done at the very last minute after the public hearing was over in a private, off-the-record setting with the—
Excuse me,
Yes.
Ms. Waller?
Yes?
I need you to stick to what this petition is.
This is about 47004. I'm saying—
This is not about 47004.
Isn't it an amendment to 47004?
This is an amendment. We're not going to talk about 47004. We're going to talk about their ask to use this space. We're not going to go back to 04 and litigate.
It wasn't 04. It was like 13 when they're like blocking me from getting appeal information and blocking my request for zoning enforcement. It went on for like 10 years.
This is not what we're going to talk about tonight.
Okay, well,
we're
I
going
guess—
to talk about the use of this space that used to be storage, and they're coming in front of us now, not for office, not for surgery, but for beds, and that's what we're talking about. If you'd like to talk about that, we're willing to talk about that. I'm not willing to talk about things that I was not involved with, that nobody here was involved with.
Well, I'm asking for some special permit conditions to be added.
We are not going to put special permit conditions in for things that you have grievances for from 2013.
My turn to talk will be never. Their turn to talk will be always. They have attorneys to block every single thing, conditions rewritten in places that can never be enforced. We asked for 60 parking spaces to be removed from the garage of the last thing. They couldn't do that because that was too big. Now, of course, they can remove them. It's fine. So I guess I can never talk. But their attorneys have been terrible to us. They blocked every single thing, including request for zoning enforcement, just getting the appeal information, I was blocked from getting that. They've been beyond awful to us. So I guess they can just go on being awful to us for the next 30 years, and I can't say anything. Thank you for the opportunity to not speak.
I let people speak for 2 minutes. If you want to come up and talk about things that we can't consider, you're happy to do that, and we're happy to listen. Go ahead. Go ahead.
So I'm just going to go through. So the houses were sold. So they put the special permit condition about the about the cost basis. Then when they were to be sold, they inflated the cost basis by things that had never been done to the houses, like improvements, like new roofs had never been applied. And they also put hundreds of thousands of dollars of cost of financing on top. So it could never be sold. Then in 2012, 126 neighbors, the immediate neighbors at Newton Wellesley Hospital, almost every single neighbor put a request for zoning enforcement in. The reaction of the hospital lawyer was to tell the commissioner to never respond to us so we could never appeal it. This is 126 people. Then then he finally responded 9 months later, and then I tried to get the appeal information from him. He didn't give me the appeal information. He wouldn't give it to me, even in writing when I asked for it. I finally got it when I asked him in front of the mayor. I got it. Then I asked the clerk for the appeal information, but the attorney, Mr. Levine, intercepted my email twice and blocked me from getting information and pleaded not to give me the appeal information. This is the hospital attorney, okay? The result was I got the appeal information 1 day before it was due. I got it in. I passed it in. But then Mr. Lojek would not tell me where the clerk's office was, okay? I stayed up all night to write this appeal. This is just sadistic, horrible behavior on the part of the hospital. Those continue because they had their lawyers. So and then in the last permit, the 1/8/2003, Mr. Stearns is now asserting that this permit, 47004, says that they can put 200-foot buildings up by right, okay? He says that in the permit, okay? That's not true, okay? The special permit doesn't send that to every single building. And I think we have to have a new condition saying that the SR2 dimensional standards still apply to the Wellesley Hospital. They're not circumvented by past special permits. Thank you for letting me talk.
Thank you, Ms. Waller. Is there anybody else from the public that wishes to speak on Zoom? Raise your hand. If not, we'll go to the counselors. Counselor Laredo.
So thank you, Mr. Chair. So, I mean, they're filling in already a shell building. I think that makes perfect sense. The hospital clearly needs the beds. I just want to understand a little bit better the parking situation. So, as I understand it, there's 2,000 some odd parking spaces available. And at peak, they use, there's maybe 150 or so that are not being used. Is that right?
If that's directed to me, this Mr. Stearns again. So the studies that are done, look at different days of the week, different times, but the conclusion is that we have around 162 surplus capacity at what is identified to be the peak utilization time in the mid-afternoon. That's the time.
So that, again, I understand it's a snapshot. You never can tell if you're going to get a little bit more, a little bit less in a particular day. But basically, I think you're saying at peak time, if my math is correct, you're at over 90% capacity, probably even close to 95 on some days, right?
Can be. We can't control yep.
So we're certainly not going to, encourage lots of people to drive to a hospital. On the other hand, by definition, patients and visitors often drive to hospitals for very good reasons. And we do have limited parking in the neighborhood and along Washington Street. So what measures, if any, will you take on site when you're near capacity to make sure that folks can find parking, relatively quickly?
Well, as I said earlier, there are multiple active valet operations at multiple entrance points. There are multiple places that are identified on the site where the valets can take the cars to after the patients and visitors have been dropped off conveniently at a main building entrance. There's parking for employees primarily in the garage in the rear of the site and a number of the surface lots in the rear of the site. There's meaningful effort to allocate surface level garage parking in the employee garage in the back to patients and visitors because it has such geographic proximity to the ED entrance, and people are obviously under stress when they're arriving and want to park. And we have a professional parking management team who participated in the TDM plan we've presented and will participate with Justin and any other senior leaders of the hospital in these further discussions with the neighbors about how we can do this so that everybody feels it's being properly managed.
And thank you, Mr. Stearns. Ms. Maloney, how successful have your TDM measures been with your employees? I mean, what you've had them in place for a bunch of years now. Are you seeing an increase in T ridership, a decrease, an increase in biking, a decrease, increase in folks who can walk, or decrease? What are your results?
Sure. With the pandemic, Mr. Laredo, we saw a decrease in some of the T ridership. Our biking, I would say, has remained steady. There aren't that many of our employees that live close enough to the hospital to probably be able to walk. We do encourage via the discounted MBTA pass for those employees who can to take the T. Additionally, to ensure that we have enough employee parking on site, we also rent lease spaces at the Woodland T station so that we're not oversubscribing the campus. And we do provide shuttle service for our employees from the T station so they can safely get to campus.
So just so we, it's interesting for us, I think, to have a large employer in the city, share with us how their employees get to and from their place of work. So if you had to break into categories of employees, I'm just talking employees, they're really the only folks you have control over in that regard. How many walk, how many bike, of your total number of employees, how many take public transit, and then how many drive? If you have those statistics, I think they'd be very telling, and particularly if you have those statistics over a 5 or 10 year period, I think that would be quite informative for us, even if you don't have it this evening.
Yeah, I would not want to misquote anything this evening, but we certainly can pull the information for you.
I think it'd be helpful, and I don't know if our planning department keeps track of those kind of statistics or not, but I would think they'd be a very good guide as we think about how people, not what we theorize in terms of how people ought to get to work, but how they vote with literally their feet or their cars or their bikes. I think that tells us a great deal. So I'm fine with the project. I think your parking plans make good sense. If you would provide that information, if you can readily provide it, probably through Ms. Wewell, and Ms. Wewell, if you could distribute that to us, I think it would be, it'd be informative, particularly the trends over periods of time. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Stern or Ms. Maloney, do you know how many beds are in this hospital without these 24?
Yes, we have.
Go ahead.
We have 250 licensed beds.
Okay, so this is increasing the beds by 10%. Thank you. Councilor Bowman.
Sorry, I forgot to raise my hand. So I was going to say 24 beds. I'm not particularly concerned about increased parking needs from 24 beds, especially 24 beds coming from an emergency room situation where people have to be housed. It's, you're going to have a lot of seniors, you're going to have people, clearly people will come to visit them, but, probably, less likely that.
It's the staff that increases.
Yeah, the staff, some staffing increase as well, but I think it's, it's really minor, and it sounds like there is some capacity there. And, when we build my dream Washington Street that's got the bike lanes and the nicer sidewalks there and a few more trees, it'll be much easier to bike to the site. But unless you're coming down Beacon Street, it's difficult to bike to the hospital safely. So I'm not surprised that it's not more subscribed for biking, but thank you.
Okay, for another time, but it's also not surprising that in the wintertime, people don't bike too. Okay, Counselor Downs.
Did you want to hear from President Albright first?
No, I called on you.
All right. Well, as somebody who bikes all winter,
Go ahead.
I'll leave it there. You know, it's like Columbia or the other winter gear advertiser say it's not the weather, it's the gear. I think the only thing that I would like to stress to the hospital while they're here is the maintenance of that back entrance, and restoring the chain and making sure your contractors are parking where they should. I suspect your employees are parking where they should. I think it's probably patients that are coming into our local streets and because they would prefer not to pay for parking. And if that continues to be a problem, we can bring it up in traffic council and put together a parking plan. I have no problem with this project otherwise, and I'm prepared to make the motion when you're ready.
Thank you, and you make a good point. We want a traffic management plan that you're going to stick to. We want a liaison person or the right telephone number to call when something happens, so it doesn't get to the point where it ends up in traffic council or in front of us, the public safety and transportation, because the neighborhood is not being respected and treated fairly. So on notice with that. My dear President Albright, you are next.
Thank you, my dear chair. So as you indicated, the emergency room since the pandemic is much busier than it was before the pandemic. And I'm just wondering, will the addition of these 24 beds make the wait in the emergency room more tolerable, or will it still be long?
For those patients, medical patients, medical surgical patients to be admitted, definitely. I think you're all aware we have a significant behavioral health crisis across the country. We still sometimes have difficult placements for some of the behavioral health, even though we have 45 inpatient adult psychiatric beds at Newton Wellesley. But unfortunately, particularly for children and adolescents, there still will be a wait. In the ED, we work diligently to have those children placed, but unfortunately, there still are bed capacity issues there. And we don't have inpatient child and adolescent psychiatry beds at Newton Wellesley. So there still would be a wait there.
So I mean, people will be waiting for a bed at some other location?
They need to be transferred, yes. So sometimes there's a wait in that specific population, but for those patients that are going to be admitted to Newton Wellesley, the wait with these 24 additional beds, the wait definitely will be cut down.
Oh, that's good to hear. And with respect to parking, I don't know how it happens, but the parking always seems to work. All the various locations with all the valet parking that you provide, it always seems to work no matter what time of the day. It can be very busy, but somehow you can always find a space or have someone help you find a space. So I think it's working well. Thanks very much.
Thank you. Councilor Lucas?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. With respect to the 200 spaces you have in the Woodland parking garage, are those for employees or are those for patients?
Those are for employees.
Employees, okay. And are those 200 spaces normally occupied on an average weekday?
We still have capacity over there. The other thing that's happened since the pandemic, we do have employees that do hybrid work now, so they're not on campus, they're not coming to the hospital full-time, some of our administrative folks, so we're not at full capacity for those spaces we lease there.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much. Councilor Downs, do you still have your hand up?
I'm ready to make a motion to close public hearing and to approve this proposal.
Okay, Councilor Downs has made a motion to close the public hearing. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Abstentions? Public hearing is closed. We have a motion to approve. Ms. Sandoval, can we take a look at a council order, please?
Sure, hold on a second.
You can blow that up.
Oops, sorry. Can you see that?
Yes.
Okay. So number one, these are the findings. The site is an appropriate location for the expansion of internal hospital uses because the conversion of existing storage space to inpatient facilities involves the finishing of an existing building space to provide inpatient beds and helps to serve the community by providing medical services to those in need. The amendment to Council Order 47004 allows for the finishing of already existing shelf space permitted by Council Order 47004, and there will not be a change in the site plan or any expansion of the building footprint. 3, the amendment to Council Order 47004, which allows for the proposed expansion of the non-conforming use, will not adversely affect abutting properties or the character of the neighborhood, as the addition is within an existing structure and will not visually impact the neighborhood. 4, because there is an excess of available parking at the hospital at present, the proposed removal of a limited number of employee parking spaces will not adversely affect the availability of parking at the hospital for patients, visitors, or employees. The excess parking supply is sufficient to accommodate added demands for parking that may result from the addition of beds, and the existing parking layout has proven to be safe for both pedestrians and vehicles. And the use of additional hospital square footage for inpatient beds will not generate a significant amount of additional traffic in the immediate area and neighborhood, and access to the site is appropriate for the types and numbers of vehicles involved. Go to next.
Excuse me?
Would you like me to go to the next slide?
Yes.
So the standard conditions, we have a standard plan condition, but we added the updated floor plan. And we also noted compliance with condition number 7 of Board Order 47004, which includes an updated travel demand management plan, updated traffic study, and a defined use of this shelf space for an inpatient bed facility. There's also the standard building permit condition with the construction management plan noted earlier, and then a standard final inspection and certificate of occupancy condition.
Great, thank you very much. Okay, we have a motion to approve in front of us. Mr. Matthews, please call the roll.
Councillor Bowman,
Aye.
Councillor Downs,
Aye.
and Councillor Greenberg has recused herself. Councillor Kelly,
Aye.
Councillor Laredo,
Aye.
Councillor Lipoff,
Aye.
Councillor Lucas,
Aye.
Councillor Markowitz. 6 votes in the favor.
Thank you very much. Good luck. All right, that concludes our meeting. Have a good one, everybody.
Night, Rick.